Welcome to Better with Art. I'm Melinda, and I'm here to encourage you to reclaim your creativity and practice creative self-care with weekly small art prompts that can be done in an art journal or on paper if you don't have one. I'm also exhausted. The thought of having to film art while I'm making it and explain and describe what I'm doing feels really hard right now. On the plus side, I have shared some projects I love over the last almost 2 years. This week, I am resharing my first experience with something that has become one of my go-tos when I would like to relax. It's a look back at week 25 of the 52-week art journal journey, finding peace in the process. Okay, friends, I have a new favorite on Instagram. You need to check out Andrea Nelson Art. She really gets the importance of creativity to mental health. And this week's small art is my take on several of her reels mishmashed together. Welcome to week 25 of the 52-week art journal journey, where we again spend some time just relaxing into our small art, letting all the stuff recede and allowing the flow of making lines and spreading color calm our busy brains. This week I used black Sharpie, some finer black micron pens, a silver Sharpie, my cheap Crayola kids set of watercolor paint I got at a local dollar store that does cost more than $1, and my Art Pop watercolor pencils for the first time. Once you get a feel for what we're doing this week, you can know what you can get lost in for art making relief. Grab a black Sharpie if you have one. I started with a micron pen because I was somehow out of black Sharpies. It's a little too fine. Water soluble is not so great for this small art, but will work if you don't plan to use watercolor paint, but only markers or something dry like colored pencils when it's time to make more marks or add color. We start with lines. Curvy, relaxed lines to span our page. You may want to start vaguely in the bottom left corner and end somewhere in the vicinity of the upper right. Draw some lines across your page and draw some more. Make sure they cross in various places. We're not going for crowded, just breaking up the page, I guess you could say. Don't think too much about it. If I remember correctly, in one of her reels, Andrea suggested around 8 lines. In one version of this, all of them stayed kind of centered in that upward left to right. Silver Sharpie was my number 2 page. Next, we round things off. All those pointy areas where lines come together, we soften. As I said, relax into the process. It can help soften the sharp edges of what you're feeling. Just let it flow, and you'll feel those harsh edges smooth and gentle too. As I rounded the crossings of my third go at this, after getting new black Sharpies, I also added more lines. It just felt good. And that's a big part of what this process is about. Andrea Nelson is a watercolor artist. I am not. But if you've been following this journey for a while, you know I enjoy playing with art material. And I don't have to quite know what I'm doing to share a small art process with you. If you missed week 19 and would like to play with some watercolor techniques with me, there's a link in the description. Watercolor is a great choice to extend the flow of this project and add some color. I enjoyed it, though because I was trying to protect my silver lines from overflow, I tripped up my relaxation a number of times. Don't get fixated on any particular effect, and you'll have a more peaceful experience. The lines are great and are an important part of the process, but they do not need to be protected from overflow. They do not need to be protected. They do not. They just don't. That being said, if you really want well-defined areas of color, you can let blobs dry before you paint their friends that touch. And gotta say, painting onto water with watercolor is another level of losing oneself in the process as you watch how they blend together, as opposed to applying color to dry paper, unless that really stresses you out. I thought this process would also be a great time to experiment with my Art Pop watercolor pencils. Here are a few ways to use them that I understand, at least in theory. Coloring with them, then painting over and blending. Coloring with them on a wet surface, with and without wetting the tip first. Like the watercolors, it was fun and relaxing when I wasn't getting frustrated that I couldn't make them work the way I wanted. I didn't actually finish this one. It became far less than relaxing to be filming it. Color isn't the only relaxing option. Other options are filling in your blobs with soft edge designs. Like tiny circles you can fill in the gaps between, like you rounded off your corners. And what would you call outlining on the inside? I honestly can't come up with a term for it at the moment, with a finer tipped marker or pen. I did both of these in this third go, before adding an engrossing, no pressure, riotous rainbow of watercolor. Do what works for you. With my aging eyesight and worse, mildly arthritic wrists and fingers, the circles, while I love them in theory, turned out to be difficult for me. But I wanted to finish the pattern I started. And again I say, don't get caught up in an image in your head of the product. Let yourself get caught up in the process. If you're not working too hard at it, it can do its job of giving your mind a chance to relax. I can't promise this arty activity will magically inspire your brain with answers to the knotty problems stuck in it, but you may find some clarity when you let yourself step back from the whirling mental spiral. And the sharpness of your anxiety and tension will soften like the pointy crossings of your lines if you don't fixate on an arbitrary standard of good. We are reclaiming our creativity, not trying to create masterpieces. We are accepting and reveling in the freedom of the messy process, not shackling ourselves in another area we may fear not measuring up. As always, I say, have fun. Make marks and lay down color with the art supplies that you enjoy. And I haven't forgotten the journaling prompt. It's just really brief this week. Add one word to your page or a short phrase. What came to mind while you created? Or what would you like to remind yourself of about this process when you flip back through your journal? Maybe it's freedom or peace or release that we find in the process. Maybe it's color. How did this small art speak to you? I appreciate the opportunity to encourage you to establish a healthy habit of creative self-care through art journaling. I'll be back next week with another prompt. In the meantime, have some fun and find some peace in this week's process, and check out the description for more arty links.